I'm Paranormal Pete, and I'm on a journey to seek answers to the questions that have crossed all of our minds. What happens to us when we die? Is there an afterlife? I'm a regular guy who discovered the gift of psychic mediumship in my 30s. My passion for history and the unknown have put me right here, right now. My mantra for anything paranormal is, we don't know much and anything is possible. Join me as we find our way through the stories, evidence, and experiences of the paranormal and beyond in search of answers, even if that leads to more questions. Are you with me? Hey, welcome to the Paranormal Pete Show right here on the Sacred Spiral Network at sacredspiralnetwork.com and on all over the socials. But welcome to the show. This is our December show, and I've got a fun, cool, hopefully thought-provoking presentation I'm going to do tonight. And thanks for watching. And hey, Michael, thanks for watching. I'll try and put comments up as I can. Yeah, but there's a lot to talk about tonight with the holidays coming, and well, we'll get into it here in a second. I've been super busy, like I'm sure everybody else is around this time of year, and so hopefully everybody's doing well and keeping your stress level down this time of year and living to be present in the moment. So got a lot going on, got a lot coming up. I had a great Ghost Walk tour last weekend, a great group of people. It was a lot of fun. And, oh, hey, Katie, friend of the show. Thank you. Thanks for joining in. Yeah, comment say hi if you're watching, or, where you're watching from. But yeah, I've got some tours coming up. No Rest for the Wicked coming up in January. I've got a Ghost Walk on the 10th, and I've got one in February on February 7th, and then I've got one on March 6th coming up as well. And you can find all the info. And I thought I had a banner going. Well, at portgambleparanormal.com. And then I've got special investigations. So if you have never done a paranormal investigation, or maybe you have done some paranormal investigating, I do special investigations, which are, in a sense, a public investigation. I have one coming up January 24th, although I think it's sold out today. So my next one will be February 21st, March 7th, and April 25th. And again, you can find that all. I'll put it in the comments at www.portgambleparanormal.com. Okay. Anyways, hopefully everybody's having a good season. We've been having some crazy weather in Washington where I'm at, so I hope everybody that's been affected by floods and displaced and everything, hope you're doing okay. And Charlene, watching from Hoodsport, thanks for joining in. Appreciate you. Yeah, I hope everybody's doing okay and hanging in there. And at Labyrinth Criterion, hello, watching from YouTube, thanks for joining. And if you found this show and you like it, hopefully you've found all the other shows on sacredspiralnetwork.com. There's so much good content coming out on this station, so if you found this show, hopefully you're finding all the other shows to check out as well. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. I'm here in Little Port Gamble. We just had our country Christmas celebration here, and it was our biggest turnout yet for our tree lighting ceremony and fireworks show. And so it was so cool to see, in these times, community coming together and everybody just laughing and having a great time and spreading the cheer of the season. So it was very heartwarming to be a part of. And Alexis commenting from YouTube, watching from New York. Well, hey, thanks for staying up late with us tonight. Hopefully you got a cup of coffee. So Thanks for watching, and just a couple shout outs. I want to thank my family for their just great support in me doing this show, and just everyone who's a part of the show. Thank you so much. We're getting to that time of year where we want to say thanks to everybody. So I want to thank all my guests and Kelly Brickle from the Psychic Hour and the Numerology Hour and Sacred Spiral Network for providing a space for people to come and talk and share things that help people, share the metaphysical side of the world. And so thanks everybody for all the hosts and all the different shows for making space for that and sharing that with the world. So it's really awesome. One note more on a local level here in where I'm at in Kitsap County. Want to give a shout out to Al Alto and his family. He's a Kitsap County music legend and amazing musician and guitar player. Really neat guy. Passed away recently, and so for anybody that knew him that's watching, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to him and wishing him, peace on the other side. So, okay. Well, enough with some sad stuff, but let's get on to some interesting stuff. Well, it's the holiday season, and we usually this time of year we think about those loved ones we've lost more so than I think maybe throughout the rest of the year in general, and so we tend to reminisce and a lot of sense of nostalgia and, remembering those who would spend the day, Christmas Day with you or New Year's or, coming over for family dinners or whatever it might be. Those traditions, we often think about all those people that are not with us anymore. And so I thought it would be cool to do a presentation I've done at a ghost conference before. I think it's timely for the holiday season, and so we're going to take a glimpse at the possibilities of how spirits and ghosts affect us, the living, while exploring how the living can affect the dead. So both vice versa. And especially during the holidays when we're thinking of our loved ones who've passed. I mean, I always think of A Christmas Carol, right? The ghosts of Christmas past, Christmas present, and Christmas future. We often think about the past and then, think about what's to come with the new year coming and what's coming up. And so let me bring this up here. So yeah, I thought it would be fun to do. Want to do a talk on connections with spirit and the effect of the living on the dead and the dead on the living. So we'll talk about how spirits affected me through psychic mediumship and just my own personal experience while discussing how the living could affect spirits and ghosts during paranormal investigations or just in your everyday lives, right? This goes right along with the presentation I've done before, Ghosts Were People Once Too. And this is a continuation of that and further thinking about it and downloading. So, how does spirit and the dead affect the living? Well, I think we have a little more insight into that from our own personal experience, right? This is a picture my daughter did. So, how can spirits and ghosts and the dead affect us, the living? She's a great artist. She just keeps getting better. So, how can the dead affect us, the living? Right? Well, it can be physically, emotionally, mentally. And I'll just preface throughout this whole thought, I am not a doctor. And so I do not diagnose things. I do not pretend to diagnose things. But certainly, I think spirits can affect us emotionally and mentally. They can also affect us through dreams, personal experiences, and the different types of effects are usually reported or discussed as being personal experiences. Personal experiences, are typically the most impactful experience a person can have. And on my tours, I ask people to raise their hands if they're a believer in the paranormal. And then when people raise their hands, which usually a lot of people do, I say, now keep your hand up if you are a believer in the paranormal because you had a personal experience. Something happened to you, or you believe something happened to you. And almost 100% will keep their hand up. And it just illustrates that it's like the most impactful thing that happens to us from a spirit perspective. But we also have to remember that we are flawed with bias and individualized perception of things. So it's the most impactful, but the most flawed. We are human, so we have to take us into the equation. Another thing to note is these types of effects are not often collected as quantifiable data. Personal experience, right? You can't really quantify it in data, especially during like a paranormal investigation. But commonly, it's noted by investigators as evidence to support other data that's collected, or it could be other evidence that it's evidence corroborating a claim, or it can be added to the data that's collected. So as we go through this, note what you've experienced in life and in the paranormal field research. If you're an investigator, or just in your everyday life, like note if you experienced any of these things, which may indicate spirit activity. Okay, so physically there's a lot of type of effects that can happen to us from spirit. There can be touch. You can be touched by a spirit. I'm sure some of you may have had that experience. I believe I've had that experience. It's rarely like one good time where I can think of. I've been slapped on the rear end, I think, a few times at the Walker Ames house here in Port Campbell. But the one time happened to me, I was in Oregon at a place, and there was a spirit of a young girl in this location, and she seemed really nervous, but maybe wanted to communicate with me. And so I asked if she would like a hug. And I said, I'm a dad, and I have girls for kids, and if you need a hug, I'll give you a hug. And what I felt was ice. It was like icicles going around, on my back like a hug, and then I actually felt like I got pushed back a little bit. But that was very intense. The chilling feeling of something wrapping around me. So touch is a pretty good one of how spirits can affect us. Scratches or other physical marks. I don't think necessarily are always a bad thing, but it's kind of scary. Knock on wood for me, I don't think I've ever noticed, a scratch or other physical marks after an investigation or during a paranormal investigation or doing a reading for somebody. Many people seem to have that experience, but I knock on wood for that. Another way spirits can affect us physically is through smells, smelling things, like getting pipe tobacco or cigar smoke, smelling that, and then all of a sudden it goes away. But smells, perfumes, colognes, you might get different types of smells that are just seem to be an anomaly in whatever space you're in. There's that electrical feeling, like static, or imagine like walking around and walk through a thick spider web. That electric feeling, that vibrational feeling, that's energy. You're feeling energy, right? That is a pretty common way that we get affected by spirit. I think everybody can feel it in some way. It's just learning how to recognize it and knowing when you get this feeling or this certain sensation, pay attention. You might be feeling energy. Could be also along the lines with touch, but typically you're just feeling the environment, and your body's feeling something. Temperature, they can affect us through temperature. You hear about cold spots a lot, but I'll tell you that in my experience, I think I've experienced more of a hot spots than cold spots during investigations, or just wherever where there's a kind of really localized area that's 10 to 20 degrees warmer, but not around you can kind of see the edge of it. It's almost like just a small space in front of you is quite a bit hotter than anywhere else. So I think, has anybody experienced like a hot or a warm spot rather than a cold spot? Cold spots seems to be pretty common. There's also psychokinesis, objects moving or being thrown, or however we perceive it, but movement of objects, something spirit can affect us with. And I have a story that I was telling my tour of a flat metal file flying off a 4x8 work table and just barely missing my knee and hitting the wall next to me and then hitting the floor. So that's another way that we can be affected. Pressure may feel like air pressure changes, or maybe you're getting like a weight, feeling like a weight on your chest, your upper chest area. So I that seems to be a pretty common way spirits can affect us too. I see a lot of people on my tours or during public investigations, they get that feeling of like some pressure, like heaviness on their chest. It could be a pretty common way that spirits can affect us. Being pushed, I hear stories about people, I got pushed on the stairs, I got pushed. That's another one, knock on wood, for me. I don't think I've ever been pushed. So thank goodness for that. Labyrinth Criterion said, thanks for sharing this. Thank you. And shout out to Courtney. Thanks for watching. Yeah, thank you. Happy to share this kind of stuff. Here's some other things I think are pretty common, and you guys are probably like thinking, oh yeah, I think that's happened to me. Getting headaches. Maybe you're hydrated. Maybe you've been staying hydrated, but you just keep getting a headache. You're feeling drained of energy. You're tired, sluggish, disoriented. That's the tired and sluggish. I think anyone who does mediumship or psychic work will tell you about that, getting drained from the energy exchange with spirit, and you get tired and sluggish, dehydrated big time. So you always have to drink lots of water when you're working with energy and things like that. You might get blurred or tunnel vision. That's kind of scary. Hasn't happened to me yet, but that's another way that I think you can be affected physically. Sleep paralysis, and I think that's a fairly debatable topic. Is it actually a ghost, or is it a physical condition? I think if you have other things happening along with that experience, like maybe you're visually seeing something, or maybe you happen to have an audio device running and it catches voices, and maybe kind of corroborate that experience. But sleep paralysis is reported a lot. Audio experiences, hearing disembodied voices. How many people have heard disembodied voices or sounds? Footsteps, doorknobs, and or someone laughing. That's a pretty common, especially here in Port Gamble, is hearing something. So they can affect us by we start hearing things. You can have visual experiences. Maybe you're lucky enough to see an apparition or shadows. I've seen a couple of apparitions. Well, quite a few, I think, but it's quite the experience, and it can change your belief system. Psychometry, I think they can affect us through us touching an object that is really tied to a spirit or that they come back to a lot. Their item, something passed down. I think we can have experiences by holding your grandpa's old pocket watch or your grandmother's favorite brooch, things like that. In my experience as a medium, a lot of times old timer gentlemen like to show me their old tackle boxes for some reason. So I get to see a lot of old beat up tackle boxes. And then of course another way physically is through mediumship, channeling, physical mediumship. I different people, mediums get things in all different ways between person to person, and so channeling can be, it can cause great effect to us. It goes back to the being drained of energy, tired and sluggish, dehydrated. Physical mediumship, even more so, where you're letting a spirit basically enter you to communicate. And that can be super intense. I've got very little experience with that because I don't think I'm ready for that. So, yeah, I think you have to be ready for that sort of thing because it is a huge effect on us by doing that. We got Bernadette was commenting. She's had pretty awful experiences with spirits. I've been seeing stuff since I was young. Growing up, I would hear, see stuff, sleep paralysis. So you've had a lot of different personal experiences. And though I'm betting that those personal experiences led you to my next slide here, which is how they can affect us emotionally and mentally once you start having a lot of personal experiences physically, where you're seeing stuff, you're hearing stuff, like the sleep paralysis, for example. Emotionally and mentally, I think, you might get paranoid. You might be experiencing paranoia because there's just so much going on that you don't understand. And when you start to get in that mode, whether it's something nice, maybe it's a loved one that's passed trying to get your attention. Well, if you start getting paranoia about it, you're not going to take it that way. You're going to take it probably as something sort of negative when it might not even be something negative. You might feel strong emotions, whether you're feeling your feelings, or maybe you're feeling someone else's feelings, or even the spirit's feelings. That's a really common one, I think. That is, that can be really strong. And then there's also electromagnetic field, EMF. This is a huge one, very common also. So exposure to high EMF will cause paranoia, headaches, skin irritations. You just don't feel good. It's not good for you, for one, to be in a high electromagnetic field for long periods of time. We're not going to be getting too much into that, but spirits, if they are in fact an independent electromagnetic field, they can give you those same sort of sensations, hallucinations, headaches, skin irritations, paranoia. If they are putting large amounts of electromagnetic field onto you, or you're in an area where there's just a lot of it. Self-doubt's another way they can affect. When we experience the unknown, we often cast self-doubt on the experience. Am I seeing things? Am I hearing things? I must be causing this. I think that's what we kind of maybe first think, or we think nobody's going to believe me on this. It's got to be something in my mind. And so, self-doubt, especially with mediumship, can be a challenge, but spirits can affect us in that way. And, just because we don't know what's going on, we kind of tend to doubt ourselves. Again, drained of energy. Think of like a new battery being drained on your meter. Bernadette said she can't stay for long, but thanks for watching. She said she's experienced, on the bright side of things, she's healed a lot, experienced positive spirits and loved ones. So that's great. So you've kind of figured out that just because maybe you don't know what's going on, then you figure out what's going on, it becomes a little bit less of a negative type experience. But so yeah, thanks for watching. So yeah, you could get the disoriented feelings, you're depressed, or bouncing off the walls, kind of extremes of energy. That could be indicative of spirit affecting you. Like you're like, oh, so depressed and slow and just don't want to move, to you're just bouncing off the walls, like, woo! Um, that could be indicative of spirit affecting you. Fear. This is probably the most common emotional reaction to a spirit or a ghost, right? Or more broadly, the unknown. In investigations in everyday life, we tend to react to the unknown with fear in the driver's seat. That's our natural human instinct. If we don't know what something is, we fear it. That's evolution. That comes from being prey for however many thousands of years humans were on this planet. It comes from all that time being prey. If we don't know what something is, well, better fear it. There are other mental issues that can arise through spirit, that are affecting you, or were they there from the beginning? And again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm sticking with what I know here. But I think spirit can definitely affect you mentally and give you those fear feelings, and especially if you really don't know what you're dealing with. Dreams, of course. How many people have heard stories about spirit visitation in dreams? That's a way they can affect us. Sleep paralysis again. You wake up out of a dream, you can't move. Again, I feel like that one, I'm just going to say, that one's a debatable topic, I think. Lucid dreaming. You're dreaming, and you can control it in some way. But maybe you're talking to, maybe in your dream, some of your loved ones that have passed. Astral projection during sleep. I think that's us doing it, but maybe spirits can help you do that. I don't know if anybody's had that experience out there. Astral projecting. For me, it wasn't flying; it was jumping. In my dreams, I could jump. I could jump as far as I wanted to, sort of thing. And I think that was astral projection as I was growing up. And I want to also mention in spirit visitation, if you've had recurring dreams, like the same dream, throughout your life. I have one that I'll share that I've later in life come to realize it was some of my spirit guides communicating with me from an early age, from when I was a kid, as far as back as I can remember. There was these four beings that it looked like we were on like some sort of moon. Like think of a moonscape, and they never spoke a word, but we communicated, and without speaking. And I never really quite understood what they were or why they were there. But they, throughout my whole life, even up till just recently, I still have dreams with these four beings. And they wear these, I call them like Jedi robes because I'm a Star Wars nut. So they've got like big hoods, and they seem to have bluish skin, and I think white hair. So it was kind of hard to see, and you can never really see their faces. But I think that spirit visitation is coming through in my dreams. And so if you've had a recurring dream, think about what's in that dream. You've probably already thought about it, trying to figure out what it was. And it could be spirit visitation. Another thing, so how we can be affected through dreams by spirit is actually getting physically marked. Getting marked during a dream, and then you wake up and you have that same mark that you got in your dream. I don't know if that's common or rare or what, but knock on wood, I haven't had that experience either, but I have heard of it. And I think that's another way spirit can affect us. They're leaving a mark. Okay. Now, how many of you found something in each section that you've experienced in your past or even currently? Maybe you've experienced all these effects or most of them, or you have not experienced any of these effects. I'm betting you likely have experienced most of the effects. You know, does that mean you have a lot of experience in knowing how spirits and ghosts affect us, the living? Yeah, probably. If you have a lot of these experiences, you maybe have a little more insight into communicating with the other side. So let's flip that around. So we were just talking about how spirit can affect us, the living. Now we're going to flip that around. How does the living, what effects are we, the living, putting on spirits and ghosts in our everyday life or maybe during a paranormal investigation? Right? I believe if we are conscious of this question, it may help guide you in trying to communicate with spirits, especially this time of year when you're really thinking about them and hearing their laugh in your mind, smelling the perfume that they would wear, the cologne, remembering your hug from your grandma or your mom or your dad or grandpa or brother or sister. I think if you think about wait a second, how can I affect them? Maybe I can do some things differently to affect them in a way where they can be more communicative to us, right? And it could help with collecting data and evidence of the paranormal during investigations if you're a paranormal investigator. If you let this thinking into your research or methods, you'll be able to build a rapport with those on the other side. Once you've established that you may be dealing with something that is paranormal and can't be explained, of course. Once you establish you might be dealing with something paranormal, try and build a rapport. It sounds weird, maybe. Maybe not. This is the other side of it. How are we, the living, affecting the dead, the spirits, the ghosts, our loved ones on the other side? And again, thanks to one of my daughters for providing artwork for the presentation. Okay, so how can the living affect the dead? Well, in everyday life, our energy and emotion. In everyday life, we aren't constantly thinking about the paranormal and ghosts and everything we do, right? It's not typically in the forefront of our mind all the time, maybe some people. But we're busy with family, we're busy with work, all the ups and downs that come with living life. How could that affect spirits or ghosts if we aren't even thinking about them all the time? Wherever we go, our energy goes with us. And we can leave pieces of that along the way throughout a typical day. However, most people do think about lost loved ones each of their days, but not necessarily in the context of paranormal definitions. We think about those we've lost, but we don't necessarily always think about them in, defined as something paranormal. You're most likely thinking of them as a person and not a ghost, and that's a great way to be. The same goes for being at home where we spend most of our time. Our energy is in our homes. Our emotions and energy that makes them up is in our homes. Whether it is good energy or negative energy, we are putting that out there into every space we're in. Like right now, all of our energies and emotions are in this very space and may stick around for a while, even after we leave. So wherever you're watching from right now, whether you're watching the live version or you're going to catch the replay of it, wherever you're at right now, you're leaving a piece of your energy there. For example, if you walk into a room where a heated argument just occurred, you may feel that energy. I think a lot of people will recognize that. If there's a spirit there, that could affect them as well in the same way. That energy put into that space could affect the spirit as well, not just the living. This is where you may think about a poltergeist or a spirit who feeds on energies we put out there. Some entities may even portray themselves as good energy to trick you into letting your guard down so they may get more energy from you. I think that happens. Probably not as much as a lot of people think, but by simply existing, our energy and emotions can imprint anywhere we go. Anywhere and everywhere we go, we're leaving a piece of that energy. Well, what about the spirits that are in those spaces? Or the spirit that's with you? Your spirit guide. Everywhere there are living people, there's a good chance spirits and ghosts are around too. Spirit guides, guardian angels, even other types of spirits that could be considered dark. Your shadow side, things like that. But everywhere we go, there's ghosts. You don't have to go to an old location. You don't have to go to a place where bad things happened. Everywhere we go, spirits are there too. With us, or maybe they're with a location. Ghosts can be tied to a location, as you may know. In this sort of case, a spirit may not have the choice, be able to, or be willing to move on from that location or your energy. I think sometimes they don't know they can leave, but they're just tied to that location. It's almost like whether they want to or not, they may be subject to your energy and emotions. Our everyday lives, right? They're subject to that. Think about how your emotions and energy affect the living around you, families, coworkers, etc. I believe spirits can be affected in the very same way as the living. If you have the thinking that ghosts were people once too, perhaps ghosts are affected by feelings just the same as a living person. They could be hurt, stressed, or on the flip side, uplifted, happy, and inspired. Could go the other way, right? We hope it's kind of always going the positive way. No closure from life to death. Many of us have experienced the loss of someone where closure and resolve wasn't able to happen between people before the passing of one of them. For example, if you're holding resentment towards a family member and they have passed away before you're able to find resolve or closure, that spirit is likely to have and hold regret or guilt. By not letting go of that resentment or guilt, the spirit may not be able to get rid of those feelings because you're holding on to it too tightly. So think about those stories or maybe your own personal experiences where you weren't able to get closure. You know, if we're holding on to it, spirit may be holding on to it as well. And so we should let it go. Learn to let it go and find peace in it. What we're holding on to or putting out there very well may be placed on spirits, whether we know that spirit or not. Again, it comes to the location. Maybe you might be affecting spirits in the location where you're just visiting somewhere. Okay? Now, in paranormal investigation, where all the action is, right? Not. It's in our everyday lives. But in a paranormal investigation, typically you're going to be focused on finding anomalies, trying to collect data and evidence of ghosts and spirit. So here's some things how we, the living, affect the dead during paranormal investigation. Provoking and triggering. That is a tactic. That's a strategy. I don't think it's necessarily a good approach. I learned a long time ago from my good friend and mediumship mentor, William Becker, of Paranormal Insights. He always said, you get back what you put out there when dealing with spirits. I certainly believe this to be true, not just in life, but when trying to communicate with spirits or investigate a location with reported haunting or spirits. You get back what you put out there. And I think, like I said, I think it's so true. If you're really trying to provoke and that's like your intent and that's what you're doing, you might not get the nicest response back, or you might not get any responses back. You might just, everything will be like, yeah, I'm not dealing with that. Provoking can cause unforeseen reactions from spirit that could be pretty negative. Would you just go around trying to provoke the living in a location you're visiting? Think about that. Going into the grocery store or whatever, and you're like, hey, what's your deal? what happened to you? Why don't you tell me? Talk to me. You're probably not going to get a good response from the living if you go around doing that. So remember the dead in that sense as well. Perhaps you use a lot of harsh language, or you bring up the manner in which someone died. This could cause the triggering of a memory of how a spirit was treated in life, or cause them to relive their own experience of dying. My experience as a medium, some spirits have shown me that they have the tendency or the challenge of reliving their death. And so try not to talk about that part of things, or have that in your thoughts all the time of the manner of how somebody died. Remember them how they would want to be remembered. Remember those parts of them that they would really want you to remember them by. I feel there really isn't ever a good time to start provoking spirits, as you may cause them to relive the worst experience of their life. And, and I say all this partly in advocacy for spirit, and and how they're treated on investigations, how they're treated by the public, how, sometimes ghosts are, may feel like they're treated like circus animals. So we got to remember as if they were living. Lack of communication of investigation intentions. That could, be a way that we're affecting them and your investigation. Or again, this all ties in with your everyday life too. What's your intent? It's so important to sort out your intentions for doing paranormal investigation, investigating a location, or even before you start in the field of paranormal research for that matter. What are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to experience? What is it your team is trying to accomplish? Whatever your intent may be, figure out what it is and stick to it. Let your intentions guide you. That's so important. And so this time of year, when we're thinking about the loved ones we've lost and all that, who do you want to try and have an experience with? Who do you want to try and connect with? And, even, not being a medium or not using mediumship, how do you want to connect with your loved ones that have passed? Set your intention. I just want to say hello. I just want to feel your energy. I want to give good energy. I want to forgive, whatever it may be. Do you do anything specific to introduce yourself? When you get to a location for an investigation, I'll introduce myself anytime I enter a location for investigation. And really any location I feel spirits in, I'll introduce myself. Might make me look a little crazy, but just walking around a space going, "Hi, I'm Pete." But I introduce myself, in any new location I'm going into, even if multiple floors in a location. No matter if you're a believer or a skeptic of the paranormal, keeping an open mind and communicating who you are and what you are there at a location for shows your intention, which could be beneficial for spirits and ghosts at that location. This may help them feel more comfortable around you and your team, or just, you and your family in your own home. And it may help you if you're investigating to gather better data, more evidence on investigation. Or if you're not an investigator and you're just trying to connect at home with your loved ones, thinking about things in this manner, you might actually be able to set out your cell phone and get your voice recorder going and hear back from somebody you love just by taking an audio recording. But remember, your intention is going to guide you. It's going to guide all of that. Another way we the living can affect the spirit and the dead, especially during paranormal investigations, is the same thinking applies. Introducing yourself, being transparent about your intentions, totally applies with using equipment. Or like I said, if you're just using your cell phone to voice record, let the spirits or location know what you're using during the investigation. Explain what each piece of equipment you're using is doing and how you think it will help you communicate with the other side. For example, if you're setting up your cell phone, audio recorder, or whatever listening device, I will say that I am placing this recorder here so it will help me hear anyone who wants to communicate with me. Or let's say, using an EMF meter, I'll mention what the tool is and that it may help me know if they're close in proximity to me. And I usually will say something, kind of lighthearted, like, hey, this device will help me see where you are so that I don't step on your toes. Does the equipment used on investigations cause harm to spirits? I think that could be a whole other discussion. Your guess is as good as mine. I mean, we don't really know unless Spirit is telling us otherwise. Some might say the ghost box maybe causes harm because it's certainly grating to the living listening to it. I haven't had experience yet where a spirit communicated that the equipment was harmful to them. Maybe one of you have. I'd be interested in hearing about that. That doesn't mean that there isn't any equipment that could be harmful to spirits. Maybe someday we'll learn more about that through more experience, right? Maybe we will learn that maybe some tools aren't the best for spirit. Another thing is you don't want to push a location too hard, or you don't want to push yourself too hard. If you're an investigator, have you ever been on an investigation where you're expecting a lot of activity or experiencing a lot of activity, and then it just stops? I've had that before. When that happens, try not to keep pushing hard. Perhaps the ghost in the location, the spirit, are spent of energy and need to rest. Just like us, when we get affected by them and we get drained of energy and tired, I think it could be that way on the other side too. I believe spirits need to rest and recharge. Back off and just hang out in a location for a while with some friendly conversation with your teammates, or focus on something else for a while. You may find that the activity begins after some time. You may also get nothing at all for the remainder of the investigation, but your data review is the fun part, right? And that's where you can see if any evidence was collected, even though the location was quiet. I've seen a lot of people on investigations, feel disappointed that not a bunch of stuff happened, and it's okay. Stuff doesn't need to happen all the time. In Port Gamble in the Walker Ames house, it's investigated a lot, and I hold tours that stop in there. I feel I've become so familiar with the place that I can tell when it needs a rest. So I will not hold investigations or even visit the house for some time to allow the location and our long-term residents to be undisturbed in their place. I certainly don't want to wear out my welcome there or at any location. Remember earlier when I mentioned about building a rapport with spirits. I believe you can achieve a good rapport at the location or spirits by simply being conscious of what we, the living, are doing to the space. If ghosts were people once too, they likely want to have some time to themselves, just as we do from time to time. We all like to have our alone time. I think spirits do as well. Are you guys still with me? If there's any questions out there, I'd be happy to answer them. And just in closing, it's a lot to take in. I hope, and this is recorded, so you'll be able to see it on my YouTube channel if you ever want to go back to it. But I hope you'll take some of this presentation with you moving forward, whether you're out investigating on a team or just living your everyday life, because not everybody is out being a paranormal investigator. Not much is known about our effect on the dead, but we do know some ways that they can affect us. And if you're conscious about your effect on the space and its inhabitants, you may pave a better road of communication and success in exploring the paranormal, ghosts, and spirits. So I hope you enjoyed that. especially this time of year. If you want to try and connect with your lost loved ones, think of them as if they're there. Remember them how they were in life. Um, Thanks, Katie. Oh, she's still here. Woo! I didn't put everybody to sleep. All right. I'm glad I'm giving you a lot to think about. When you really think about your loved ones that have passed, um, and Phyllis, I think is how you say that. My grandmother's name was Phyllis. Interesting. Thank you, Christina Schmidt, friend of the show. Great job. Thank you very much, guys. Yeah. So if you're wanting to get rid of that, if you're wanting to connect with those loved ones that have passed, like here's some easy ways to get to being able to communicate or feeling something is put your intention out there. You're wanting to communicate with so and so. You're wanting to feel something or just get a sign that somebody's there with you. I often think of my grandparents because they were just so special, such amazing people, and so I think of them as if they're there, and I think it helps. So some things you can do is, especially if you have an object, like I mentioned before, your grandpa or your dad's pocket watch, or maybe their Zippo or whatever it might be, something that meant something to them. If you have that, hold on to it and remember that person using that object or talking about that object. That's putting an intention out there that you're holding this space for them to come meet you there and meet with this object. And so you want to think about how that object affected that person in life, how much they loved it. Maybe they used it all the time, an old pocket knife, maybe they used it a lot. And so just think about how that person used it, and that might get them to come to you and find you through that object. Another thing, this is a really good one, is to hear that person's laugh, right? Everybody's got their own laugh, their distinct laugh. And so remember that person's laugh. Hear it in your mind. And that is another great way to get into a place where you can connect with that person. Hearing their laugh, remember how it made you feel. Maybe you're thinking of a certain instances with that person where you told a joke and they laughed really hard. Hearing the laugh can really help connect you to that person. Remembering, colognes, perfumes, those smells. Bring those up in your memory, what that smelled like. Then, see if you smell it. That can help bring that person to you. Remembering what their hand felt like, if you ever held their hand, or handshake. Remember what their skin felt like. Remember what their hand felt like. Was it cool? Was it really hot skin? How did it feel? Were their hands frail? Remember how that felt. That is a really good connection piece as well. And their hugs. What did you feel when you got a hug from this person? Remember that feeling. Remember how hard they would squeeze you, or how little they would squeeze you, or vice versa, you squeezing them. Their hug is another great way to connect with somebody. And I think of one of my grandpas and him laughing. He laughed a lot, and that's a good connection piece for me with him. My other grandpas, hearing his voice and hearing him talk about things, just the way he would talk about things, I think about that, and that's a good way to connect. Both of my grandmas, their laughs and how their hugs felt, and holding their hand. What did their hands feel like? These are all things that have worked well for me, and so I hope they will work well for you this holiday season and moving forward. But it's one of my grandmas would make butter and jelly sandwiches. And interestingly enough, in my very first psychic reading ever that I received that changed my life, that came up in that reading. And so I knew it was her. So I think about, those unique things like that. I remember those sandwiches and her making them and hearing, the knife clinking on the butter dish. When I hear that and think about her making these sandwiches, I feel like I can connect right with her. So it's remembering those things, remembering the human parts of the things, not remembering them as a ghost necessarily, but remembering all the human aspects of them and how they made you feel in each of those experiences. And I hope that makes sense to everybody out there. And if there's any questions, I've got a minute for questions here. I should probably also mention my next show is going to be on January 14th, and I'll be announcing the guest real soon. I hope you'll check out my friend's show, Hassling the Paranormal, with Jason Hassler. He just had Ricky Rocket from Poison on his show, so hopefully you'll check that out. Jason's become a great friend over the years, and of course everybody else that my great friends that do shows. And I hope that you'll check out all the shows on this station right here, sacredspiralnetwork.com. There's so many good shows out there. There's so much to learn. I hope you guys learned something tonight. Take these thoughts with you. I'm not hearing any questions or seeing any questions. So thank you for those that have watched live on this, and for everybody catching the replay. Thank you for tuning in and listening. You can always find my page on Facebook. Look up Paranormal Pete Show, or look up on YouTube as well. And you can find the show on sacredspiralnetwork.com. And wishing everybody a happy holiday season, whatever you're celebrating, however you're celebrating it. I hope it's a good experience for you. Try and be present as best you can. I know at this time of year we tend to look forward a lot. Look forward. What's coming next year? But try and take some time now and, through the holidays to be there with the people, make those memories, the future generations, the young people in your lives, that they can look back on someday and to try and connect with you someday, right? I think of my kids, and I want them to have things that they'll think back on. It will make it easy for someday when I'm a ghost, that I'll be able to easily connect with them. And so make those memories, be present. Thank you guys. Katie, thanks. Merry Christmas to you and your lovely family. And Merry Christmas to you as well. Christina, awesome show. Thank you so much. We got someone here that I'm making memories with. My dad. Good show, especially important this time of year. Thanks. That's my old man there. Thanks for commenting. It sure is. It's that important time of the year. It's not just this time of the year, but it tends to be the time of year where we start really thinking about the loved ones that have passed and missing them at family functions. So remember them. Remember all those little memories, their laugh, their hugs, all that is a great way for you to connect with those people, and hopefully you'll feel something. Hopefully you'll feel the energy and feel something from them. But I leave you with this. I always end my show with a quote, and this one comes from my awesome and amazing wife, Molly, who makes everything possible in my life. And so I can't thank her enough, and love you, Molly. But this quote is from her, and it's very timely. The earth is heavy, but the universe is light. When met with stress or sorrow or even overwhelming joy, know that today is the history of tomorrow. Accept it for what it is and move forward into the brightness of the next moment. Happy holidays, everybody. We will see you on January 14th on this show. In the meantime, check out sacredspiralnetwork.com. See you soon. Thanks a lot, everybody. Happy holidays.